Now, Pokemon investing is a term that creates more scrutiny than any other topic relating to the Pokemon fandom, and this discussion usually brings upon fans debating whether or not it's an actual viable investment strategy or if it is complete chaos. Now, one of the key issues that people battle with this is the level of extreme sides that they can take within these arguments, right? Just naturally, there's a really strange thing that happens when we debate, right? For some reason, we usually tend to view things as very black or white, though there are a million shades of gray in the middle, and this is what this video is genuinely about. And I'm going to explain why this matters in just a moment. But you guys know the person that arguments that Pokemon cards will set them up for retirement is no worse than the person who outrightly denies it as an investment vehicle. Both are wrong, right? Because to deny that products don't rise over time, you're just denying facts, right? As there actually isn't a single example of a sealed product before 2019 that hasn't risen in value. And at the same time, Pokemon cards do not have infinite growth, nor are they immune to market crashes or people just becoming disengaged with the hobby. Though what's incredibly important to understand is that there's a lot of reasons why Pokemon investing is becoming increasingly popular, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that products seem to follow a consistent pattern of growth no matter how many naysayers deny its existence. Like during 2022, right? A lot of the community felt modern would never rise in value, and there was a very strong sentiment that modern products will never rise, though time and time again, it seems Pokemon cards always end up on top. Now guys, in terms of the rules, the first unwritten rule that I want to talk to you about is if you expect products to rise in 3 years, you're in the wrong place. Now, the 2020 boom started this kind of mindset, right? Because Pokemon actually couldn't meet the market demand since Pokemon products boomed in popularity. In fact, the search term on Google, Pokemon cards, had a 4 times increase in search volume. Because of this, Pokemon was exhausting their printing capabilities, but even then, they couldn't meet this newfound demand. And what happened was, products would fly off shelves immediately, leaving a reseller market to become abundant. This was truly one of the worst eras to be involved within the franchise and the hobby, as no one could access products and scalpers would be taking advantage of this immediately. So products that released during this time increased and people made quick profit. Now, the key issue with this is because so many new fans came into the hobby during this time, some individuals took advantage of this, and then now there's become this somewhat unrealistic expectation, and it's kind of naive to think that if products don't rise within like a year or two, that they are worthless and that they will never rise. Though, the products that increased during this time were all because of a timing in an unprecedented time. Pokemon investments rising in value is far more realistic to be thinking in a 5 or a 10-year timeline and even beyond that. Now, the 2020 era was truly fascinating, and it was marked by the release of some of the most exceptional Pokemon card sets, and many products from this period never received reprints as Pokemon focused on newer sets. Consequently, the sets from this era have just become rare gems, and this is all due to the fact of their unique timing of release. Notably among these sets are like the Sword and Shield base set, Rebel Clash, and the Celebration set. Now also guys, I just wanted to say if you've been enjoying the content, feel free to give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. I really try to upload frequently around topics of Pokemon investing and Pokemon collecting and collectibles in general. I'd love to have you on board the channel. Now, the second rule to understand is that collectibles are investments, and they just always have been, right? Collectibles have always been investments. There is nothing new about this. And now more than ever, collectibles seem to be one of the most popular alternative investment forms within the world. I mean, currently right now on Netflix, there is a trending series called King of Collectibles, and within this series, you can just see how popular collectibles have become. From sports memorabilia, to video game collecting, to sports cards, to Pokemon cards. The list literally never ends, and it's just become a genuine part of pop culture, and it seems no way of slowing down. Now guys, on a personal note, I love my Pokemon collectibles as they add a layer of enjoyment to investing that's not directly tied to numbers on a screen or stocks. They give me excitement from a genuine passion, and then they also tie into a category of potentially becoming valuable. To me, it really ticks the boxes of being a win-win because it fits with a hobby and an investment. Now, it should go without saying that collectibles as investments is seen as quite normal, and seeing as Pokemon is one of the biggest franchises in the world, it kind of makes sense that millions of fans would also be very engaged with the collectible and the franchise aspect of these sets. So if people underestimate Pokemon cards as investments, they are denying one of the biggest franchises in the world, which kind of doesn't make much sense when you think about it, right? Now, moving on to that, the third rule is that sealed is technically the only true category of an investment. Now, this may get some debate, And I mean, that's fine. I'm happy to debate about it, though the reality is sealed products have an established market price point, right? Meaning the price has a point in the market that it needs to sell around. Something like a Lugia V alternate art may seem better and it may rise more in value and it may even grow more than a booster box, though the stability of sealed products is where a lot of investors and collectors get drawn into. Strange things can always happen, right? And it doesn't mean it's a surefire bet, though if we look at the history of TCG collectibles and we try to make forecasts for the future, because that's all we can really do, right? We can just look at the past and then make kind of some future forecasts from that. But it does seem like sealed is the way that it always seems to be in terms of consistent growth and stable growth. I mean, things can always change, right? And it's very likely that they one day will change. Those sealed products are where a lot of people feel stable when buying their products, including myself. Though guys, it is important to know, singles do have something very attractive about them, right? They can increase in value far more than sealed in the right bull run. So people might like to play a bit of that game of cat and mouse and view the market on single cards, because they also have this cool benefit of having very little storage requirements, plus that they can rise quite high in value in short amounts of time. Though they kind of do cross into that more gambling category when I look at it. All in all, the debate between singles and sealed isn't much of a debate, because singles are far better for collecting with a chance of increase, whereas sealed is far better for investing, and that's usually the general rule of thumb between the two. Rule number 4 is that most people understand reprints and they are very healthy and they are very normal within this hobby. Now, reprints seem to be a buzzword where a lot of people get, a little bit worried about, right? Though it's something that needs to be accounted for within this hobby when investing. Reprints are not a question of whether or not they will happen. It should be assumed that reprints will most certainly happen, and reprints not happening is the anomaly. That is the abnormal, right? Not the other way around. I mean, there have been few sets that didn't receive reprints. I think Astral Radiance was one of them, though this is usually because there was just low demand in the first place and there was enough stock to meet the demand. Now, something important to know, that reprints are actually fantastic, and I'm going to explain to you why that is. Reprints and the looming threat of reprints keep the market in control. If first wave prints were done and dusted, it would be a very chaotic market and scalping would be far worse, because reprints are always a possibility with no warning. It helps keep prices stable for collectors to enjoy their products. I always view myself more of a collector than an investor, though it's important to understand that my investor mindset is around a 10 to 15 year timeline. So if reprints happened maybe like 7 or 8 years after a set was released, I would be pretty upset with that. Though anything within like a 3-year period should be priced in and accounted for. Just recently, the Japanese set Lost Abyss, which is their Lost Origin, had a reprint announcement, and you know what? Rightfully so, because prices completely tumbled and it had a bit of a shock effect that pushed through every other Pokemon TCG product in the Japanese market because of this. Reprints are nothing scary and something that need to be accounted for whenever you're dealing with Pokemon investing, right? If sets get reprinted, it's actually a good thing, as more people get to experience the set, which means more people will become nostalgic for it. I mean, guys, think about it. Why do all millennials love Base Set and Neo Genesis and all those sets? They were printed to demand, and we all got to experience the set, which only helped propel the prices forward later down the line. So never really fear reprints and just have them accounted for with everything that you do within the hobby. Now, to segue into the next rule, it is rule number 5. You only make a loss if you sell when the price has dropped. Now, guys, it's really important to know that prices can change, right? Though not everything is just locked in at a certain price. Now, if you've been in this hobby for a long time, there will be few times when you purchase products and those products completely tank in value, and it's just completely unavoidable, right? It's just part of having some skin in the game. Now, on the contrary, a lot of the time you may buy a product in a poor market cycle, right? For example, the Japanese Pokemon 151 was around 180 USD a box in February. Once 2 waves of reprints happened, the price dropped to as low as 50 USD a box. If you bought in February, you literally bought in the worst point of the market possible. Though, you've only made a loss if you sold it, right? With sealed, you can kind of assume that given a long enough time, those sets will begin to rise in value once again. The only issue is you'll need to wait a longer time, though it's not like 151 is just never gonna get those prices ever again. It will just take a lot longer than usual. So if you buy out of cycle or if the market tumbles after a purchase, usually it's best just to sit and wait it out. That's why I'm very big on only buying what you actually love. Otherwise, you're just left with a ton of product that you hate because you thought it was a good investment. Now, finally, at number 6, we all have our investment mess up. every single person has their own unique story, and I guarantee that you guys could probably share your story right now with me because you know what I'm talking about. I can confidently say, without a shadow of a doubt, that everyone who invests and collects Pokemon cards or any collectible in general has a moment where they made their investment mess up, and it's just something that you cannot avoid. And what do I mean by a mess up? I'm talking about buying a product a week before it gets reprinted, or buying a PSA 10 card at the peak of the market, or selling a card right before it booms, or ripping open a ton of product the week before it starts rising, or not buying a certain card because you thought it would go down in value and it does the complete opposite, or not selling a card at the peak of the market. We all have this story, and honestly, I'd love to know yours. I mean, I spoke about mine in a previous video. I made a video regarding evolutions, and I was talking about the Sylveon and Glaceon VMAX, right? Guys, literally, the day before they boomed, I sold them. I'm not joking. I sold Sylveon VMAX, Glaceon VMAX, and even Gengar VMAX, but we all have this kind of story. So if you're in this hobby long enough, you'll experience this, and you'll just need to learn to live with it, and not every decision will be a win. You will make mistakes, though the best part is every time you make a mistake, it's just another learning opportunity. So feel free to welcome them, as kind of failure is how we grow in life, right? But you know, literally anyone who has been collecting Pokemon cards and investing in Pokemon cards for extensive periods of time has a story like this. And sometimes I wonder how people who bought vintage cards in 2020 feel. I mean, guys, in hindsight, when looking back at vintage cards, they literally crashed so badly in value. But do you know why vintage Pokemon cards crash? There was one specific reason they did, and I answer that in this video on screen right here. Within this video, I uncover vintage Pokemon cards and I go deep into the reason why they crash so much in value. If you're a Pokemon collector or an investor, this information is crucial to understand to see the natural ups and downs of the Pokemon market. Click that video, guys, and I'll see you there.